shop storage. We all need more of it. I know I do. And that's one of the things that this storage system that you see here is designed to solve. And Chris, the designer of the project, is here to talk to us a little bit about what went into it. So what were you thinking of when we came up with this idea?
Well, Phil, what I was thinking of is I've had several shops over the years, and the one thing they all have in common is a real hodgepodge of ugly cabinets and bases that never quite were what I wanted. What I wanted to do here was to come up with a system of construction which would fit a lot of different types of cabinets and bases and things that we might need for a workshop. And I want it to be solid and look good and be very intuitive to build.
Well, a project like that can quickly get out of hand, so what it sounds like to me is that you've kind of standardized some of the components and the assembly of it.
That's exactly right. What I decided to do was we would start with constructing a basic frame, then we could clad our frame with panels, and we also have the option of adding things like drawers, pull-out shelves, and that sort of thing.
Okay, well let's take a look at how that goes together.
This cabinet here is a storage locker, and as you can see, our frame starts with 4 corners, and they're all just made of 2x4s. And then we have these shelving units, which are 1/2-inch plywood and 2x4 rims, and they're bolted to our legs. And that creates a very strong, solid, simple frame. And you know, we could just stop right there and have a solid shelf unit, much better than the standardized metal units that you might find at a home center.
Yeah, they're often really flimsy, aren't they?
Absolutely. Well, this is not flimsy. And one thing we can do then is we can add sides and a back to it. And as you can see, they're painted, they look colorful, they're pretty, and that makes it very, very rigid, keeps the dust out, keeps things organized.
And it looks like to me that the doors and the panels are just MDF.
That's exactly right. One of the things that I wanted to do was to only use simple, inexpensive materials that are commonly available.
Right.
So MDF, 2x4s, 1/2-inch plywood, there we go.
And the flexibility of it seems just almost one of the biggest features for me, because these shelves or these platforms can be located anywhere on here depending on what you're storing.
Absolutely. You just need to plan out what you're going to put in it, and it's just a matter of drilling the holes in the proper locations.
Okay, well let's take a look at some of the other ways that you put this construction method to work.
All right.
I see we've got a cart here.
Yes, every shop needs a little roll-around cart, handy for putting your planer on, moving materials to the table saw and back and forth, and a nice assembly platform, good for finishing.
Well, what I've noticed here is that you're using the same construction technique like we've talked about, and it just didn't seem like it would work on a cart.
Well, that's the beauty of our technique. It is flexible. You can use it in a lot of different situations. So we have our posts made of 2x4s, we have our shelves, they're bolted together, and then we've added some cladding using simple painted MDF. We've also created these little end pockets, which are awfully handy for spray cans, oil cans, and all the small clutter that accumulate in a shop.
Oh yeah, I know that's one of the big problems in my shop, is being able to find places for all the small things. The big things, it seems like there's natural hiding spots for, so to speak, but the little things are kind of what really make it. Okay, next I see we have a base unit here.
Yes, and once again, it's made in the same way. But the great thing here is we've incorporated options in the way that we've put the whole package together. For instance, we have a drawer here up top. Now we could place a drawer anywhere within our framework because we have the flexibility to divide it depending on our needs. So we could have drawers all along here. But what we've decided to do for this unit is to have doors on the bottom. You can see we have a shelf unit here that divides the upper and the lower, and a drawer up top.
And I see the drawers are on full extension slides so that nothing gets lost at the back.
Absolutely. We want to use full extension slides in all our applications. Just makes it easier.
And now I see that what we're looking at is that the base unit kind of forms as an anchoring point for a pretty large work surface too.
Absolutely. You know, we've used this simple, inexpensive MDF system for our cabinet doors and for the sides, and we're also going to use that same simple, inexpensive material for good, solid work surfaces. And so what we have here is just 2 pieces of MDF that are glued together. They're finished off nicely, edged in some solid wood, and it spans from a base cabinet to a simple end panel consisting of, once again, MDF painted.
So what you got is a really flat work area that can stand up to all the abuse that you'd want to throw at it in the shop.
Absolutely. We can never have too much work surface, and you know, within a very small area, we've got quite a bit of area here to work on.
Okay. Now let's see, here we got another base unit like we've talked about already, but instead of putting them right next to each other, we've got a kind of another variation or an accessory that we can put on.
Now, one of the things we want to do, whenever possible within a small shop setup, is to share work zones. In other words, rather than having an independent area for a chop saw and an independent area for our workbench, we combine all of this together, and that just saves space. So sometimes we might need to move a few things out of the way, but we can share the space of our workbench, our chop saw, keep things compact, very neat and tight.
Yeah, so I see that the table of the miter saw is flush with the work surface.
Absolutely.
So that it does form really long, pretty expansive outfeet support for your saw. So, okay, and then the last unit that I see here is another one. It looks a lot like the one that we first talked about.
You know, Phil, this is exactly the same as the one we looked at first, except that there are no doors on it, and we've chosen a different option. We have less shelves, but we've added these pull-outs on full extension slides, and we've created essentially a tool dock. And it's really a nice, handy way for storing a lot of our power tools.
That is really great. I noticed on this top one especially that you'll be able to see and get at a lot of the things even in the back, but it makes a nice way to be able to organize some of the things that you may not use every day.
Well, I think one of the things that's worth pointing out here is, as we just mentioned, is that this is the same frame as that first cabinet we looked at. And so duplication. And when we duplicate things, it just makes it easier. Instead of building, 5 separate items, each requiring a yellow pad full of different dimensions, we're making a lot of things the same. They repeat, and it's just so much easier to do when you've got a whole big shop to build.
Yeah, and I think that's what really makes me think that I would really like to use this in my shop, is just having the simplicity of it, that once you know what your parts are, is that you can start putting together some of these sub-assemblies, these platforms and these posts all at once, and be able to get everything assembled kind of in a production line.
Absolutely. And one of the things we wanted to do was to make the system intuitive. We start with a skeleton, we clad it with sides, back, we add our options, we add doors, and so you can go ahead and just sort of plow into it and start with our basic components without having to have everything figured out to the exact detail beforehand. It makes it a lot easier.
Right. Now there's just a few things left that I noticed that are kind of separate from our bigger case units here, and maybe you could start talking about this small wall cabinet.
Yes. Even though we have this large expansive system that we can use for a lot of applications, there are still some smaller items we need to make to fit certain sort of special situations. And this is a very easy wall cabinet, wall shelf unit rather. And as you can see, we've used our painted MDF as we have for our cabinets, and we've made shelves out of 1/2-inch plywood and some solid wood rimming them. Very simple, and it kind of follows the same feel, and in many cases the same techniques that we've already been using.
Yeah, it looks just like a scaled down version of the platforms that we showed in the bigger units.
Exactly.
And these bins come in really handy for storing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and the bins are commonly available. They're great. Every shop ought to have quite a few, so it's a good place to tuck them away.
Okay. Now, love it or hate it, there's pegboard I see that you've included in this project too.
Yes, love it or hate it. Well, I think every shop deserves a little bit of pegboard. We wanted to have some, but we also wanted to have a method of taking care of a lot of the items that just don't work well on pegboard.
Right, and I've seen a lot of jerry-rigged solutions to try and get them to fit on, and they just...
Absolutely. So we're using pegboard where it makes sense. With all of these nice hangers, you get a lot of our small little hand tools put up. But what I wanted to do was go ahead and add ample amounts of shelving to control the clutter and to control the tools that don't fit well on pegboard. And so what we've done is just made this simple series of bins. We have a vertical section, a horizontal, followed by another vertical. And there's nothing fancy about these. It's MDF once again. Our shelves are dadoed into the sides, a little glue, a few screws, some paint, and we're in business. And we've got a nice, colorful, good little storage solution around our pegboard.
Yeah, and what I like about it is that they're shallow, like you had talked about, so nothing gets lost in a dark corner in the back. And it frames the whole pegboard panel nicely so that everything that you can see and get at and reach for it right away without having to fumble around for it.
Right. Another good reason to keep the bins shallow is preserving our precious counter space here.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing.
And to top it all off, we've added some lighting. Never have too much of that, and I think we're all set to work.
Great. Thanks a lot, Chris. Now, as you can see, this project would be great for just about any shop, but I would also be able to see it in a basement or a laundry room or other utility areas where you could use some more storage.